Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to plunge into those, well, often unseen forces that are shaking our world's resources.
Yeah, it's like this constant global chess match, isn't it? You've got nations, big companies, even local communities making these really strategic moves.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're focusing in on a batch of pretty important updates from the global mining world, specifically July 21st to July 25th, 2025.
Right. Our goal here is really to cut through all the noise, give you a clear view, a shortcut really, to understanding what's actually going on.
We want to pull out the most important bits of information, the key insights, help you see the big strategic shifts happening just below the headlines.
We'll be, unpacking policy changes, looking at corporate
There's
maneuvers.
a lot of geopolitics behind it all, which, let's face it, impacts everything from the phone in your pocket to, well, national security.
So expect us to look at how countries are rethinking their own waste, actually, how resource-rich nations are pushing to get more value locally.
We'll also touch on some players expanding aggressively, while others, maybe giants even, are rethinking their whole portfolios.
Yeah, it's definitely not just about minerals. It's about power, the environment, and the future of whole industries.
Okay, so let's dig in. Starting right here in the U.S., actually, the big news seems to be this bold initiative from the Interior Department.
Ah, yes. The plan to extract critical minerals from legacy mine waste.
Exactly. Sounds, I mean, incredibly ambitious. What's the biggest hurdle they face trying to make, waste the new wellspring? Is it technical or more politics and economics?
That's a really good question. I mean, on one hand, it's a direct shot at reducing reliance on China for critical minerals, right? Things like cobalt, rare earths, lithium.
Turning old environmental problems into potentially national assets.
Precisely. But the complexities are massive. Remediation, cleaning up these sites, it doesn't come cheap. That's a huge economic hurdle.
And political.
Well, there's a real concern about local community opposition. That could flare up pretty quickly if this isn't handled carefully, with like really solid environmental accountability built in.
Right, that buy-in is crucial. So how are they planning to actually do it? What are the mechanisms?
They're talking about a few key things. Streamlining the permitting process, for one.
Okay.
Expanding the federal mapping of all these old mine waste sites so they know exactly what's where. And importantly, opening up new funding channels.
So better maps, faster permits, more money.
Basically, yes. It signals a really profound shift in thinking, this idea that waste is the new wellspring. If you step back, this policy could genuinely redefine domestic mineral supply chains and boost environmental cleanup efforts at the same time. It's trying to tackle both.
Okay, interesting. Let's shift focus now over to West Africa. Ghana's just enacted some major mining reforms.
Yeah.
The biggest in 20 years, apparently.
Yeah, Ghana's moves are pretty significant. What they've done is shorten the length of mining licenses.
Okay, shorter terms.
And automatic renewals, those are gone. Plus, and this is a big one, companies now have to share revenue directly with the local communities.
Wow, direct sharing. How's that being received?
Well, some analysts see it as really progressive, part of this wider trend you see in West Africa where countries are trying to squeeze more value locally, as one put it.
An inflection point, maybe, for how nations deal with foreign mining companies.
Could be. But there's also a more cautious take, naturally.
Which is?
Questions about how you actually measure compliance for these non-automatic renewals. If the enforcement isn't crystal clear, it could potentially spook junior miners, the smaller companies that really depend on predictable regulations.
That makes sense. You need clarity.
But look, Ghana's definitely joining countries like Mali and Guinea in actively trying to rewrite the rulebook, the profit structure of these big global mining deals.
So the key takeaway here, for you listening, is this growing assertiveness. These nations aren't just accepting terms anymore, they're setting them.
Right. It's a blueprint, potentially, for how countries demand a bigger piece of the pie.
And that fundamentally changes the risk, the reward, everything for mining companies globally.
Definitely shifts the ground. Now, staying sort of in that geopolitical vein, let's talk China. There's news out of Côte d'Ivoire.
The Zijin mining deal for Barrick's Tongon gold mine.
That's the one. Zijin, the Chinese mining giant, is apparently the front runner to buy it for around $500 million.
So why is Zijin making such an aggressive move? It feels like they're really pushing into Africa while some other big players seem maybe more cautious.
Well, from one angle, their motivation seems pretty straightforward. It's about strategically positioning themselves for copper and gold in Africa. They're really doubling down, making a big bet.
Well, Barrick.
Well, Barrick's perspective seems to be they're pivoting away, getting out of what they see as, quote, high-risk jurisdictions.
So divergent strategies playing out.
Exactly. And geopolitically, you could frame this as, well, another brick in China's global mining wall. Africa really remains this key front line for resource competition.
Where Chinese investment seems to be moving quicker than perhaps Western caution allows.
That's one way it's being described, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It highlights this intense, ongoing scramble for critical resources, especially across the African continent. Different players, different risk appetites.
Which, again, impacts future supply chains for everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's bring it to another mining giant, BHP. Their latest operational updates were a bit mixed, weren't they?
Yeah, a real mix. They boosted iron ore and copper output, which is good for them, but they also flagged higher costs and delays at their big potash project in Canada.
Potash problems. But the really big headline potentially is about nickel.
That's right. The news that BHP might actually sell off its entire nickel division.
Ooh, their whole nickel arm. That's huge for a company like BHP. What's driving that thought?
Well, one analyst summed it up as just looking at where the winds are blowing. Nickel demand is high, sure, mostly thanks to EVs.
Right.
But the prices are incredibly volatile, and there are really stiff ESG headwinds, environmental, social governance pressures.
The sustainability angle.
Exactly. So investors are asking basically, is nickel worth the squeeze? Is the potential reward worth the headache and the risk right now?
That's a fascinating question. Does this mean the whole industry is souring on nickel? Or is this more specific to BHP's situation, their portfolio?
It's probably a bit of both, but it definitely signals what some are calling another great resource reshuffle.
A reshuffle.
Yeah, even the biggest players like BHP are constantly rebalancing what they hold. They're reacting to changing market demands, those environmental pressures we mentioned, and, what investors want.
So we're seeing potash maybe rising in importance for them despite the delays.
While nickel might be fading in their long-term view.
And the so what for you listening? These kinds of portfolio decisions by giants like BHP directly ripple out. They influence global commodity prices.
And ultimately, the future supply of critical materials that go into, well, everything from electric cars to building materials.
So as we wrap this up, a few clear themes seem to have emerged from these updates.
Definitely. There's this strategic rethink happening around national resources, like the U.S. looking at mine waste.
Then there's this shifting power balance between resource-rich nations and global corporations, like we see in Ghana.
And just this constant rebalancing act within the mining industry itself, like with Zijin expanding and BHP potentially shedding nickel.
Understanding these moves, these maneuvers, really helps you see the bigger picture, doesn't it? Behind the products you use every day, behind the global economy.
It's more than just news headlines. It's like getting a map to understand global competition, innovation, resource flows.
Right. So here's something to maybe chew on after we finish. A final thought for you.
Given the speed of these changes we've just talked about, the
Yeah.
policy shifts, the corporate realignments, how much faster do you think the global resource map will change in the next 10 years compared to the last 10?
That's a good question. And following on that, what new well springs, what new sources of vital resources might pop up that we haven't even really thought about yet?